Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fully Charged podcast, coming to you in a scorchingly hot day in Brisbane, Australia. I had to turn the air conditioning off in the apartment we're staying in because it's so noisy. It's wonderful noise. I'm not complaining about the noise. We can't record when it's on. And you may notice if you want to bother, but I wouldn't bother watching. I start off with a very dry shirt at the beginning of this podcast, and by the end of it, it's a little bit moist. It's very, very hot. I don't even know what the temperature is, so I don't want to look. It's very, very hot, but it's wonderful, and I'm extraordinarily grateful to be here, and it was an extraordinary privilege to be able to talk to someone in Australia. So I didn't have to do all the kind of calculating the time differences if I'm talking to someone in America or in the United Kingdom or elsewhere in Europe. So it was good that I got a chance to record this episode, and it's such an exciting aspect of electric vehicles and everything to do with it, because I'm talking to an amazing woman called Chau, who is the founder of the Origin EV section. So Origin Energy, big energy company in Australia, 4.2 million customers. And they are really working hard to progress and introduce and educate and disseminate electric vehicles in Australia. And the uptake in Australia has been so rapid. It was delayed for so long by numerous things I don't need to go into. But in the last 12 months, it really has been an enormous increase. And one of the things that this country desperately needs, and it has such enormous potential, is a charging infrastructure that people have learned from what other countries have done before. What's happened in Australia is they've kind of really entered the electric car market once the cars are mature. So if you go back 10 years when electric cars started to appear, or not more than 10 years, 14 years, started to appear in the UK, we didn't have a charging infrastructure and the cars had very limited range and they were really expensive. The list was enormous, and the negativity in the press. What we got now is a massive range of really, really good cars with really more than enough range to do what they do. The one bit that's missing, and it's happening so fast, it's coming very quickly, is a ubiquitous charging infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about rapid chargers on highways, freeways, motorways, call them what you will. I'm talking about every place you can park a car legally, that you're allowed to go and park a car. So millions of places, all those need a charge socket. And that is what we're talking about today, how you manage those chargers, how you install them, how they are smart enough to know that if they start charging all the cars that are plugged into them at full power at one time, that's going to put too much strain on the grid, so they reduce different ones at different times. Just the intelligence of the technology that we have at our disposal is fascinating. So this is a really interesting conversation, really about the beginnings of a completely new technology, a completely different way of looking at energy, of looking at a car is not just a machine that sits idle on the street for 95% of the time we use it, that it becomes a battery on wheels. And that's really the next step. And I think the thing we're going to see this year. So I won't talk about it anymore, other than to say Origin will have a massive stand at the Everything Electric show in Sydney in very few, if not weeks, very few days since you hear this. So if you're in the Sydney area or you're in Australia and you want to drive your electric car down to Sydney, we'd love to see you. We know it's going to be in some ways the biggest show we've ever done. It has the most cars, the most test drives we've ever done. Amazing array of technology on display, incredible talks. It's going to be amazing. So if you can make the effort to come, please do. It is well worth it. Last year's show was so oversold. There were so many people coming. We've had to move to a bigger venue. So we're now at the Olympic Park on the 9th, 10th and 11th of February. So very, very soon. I'll be there along with all the other fully charged presenters. Jack Scarlett, Imogen Bogle. I'm not sure about Helen. I've got to check about Helen, but Elliot Richards is coming down from Shanghai, so we're really excited. It's going to be brilliant. Please do come if you can, and if you can't, there'll be loads of reports about it, and we'll be yabbering on about it for hours afterwards, so you won't miss out on 100%. That's it. Please do welcome to the Fully Charged podcast, Chau from Origin Energy.
Like everything electric, you'll love our fun-packed Everything Electric expos around the world. Next up, Australia and London. Remember, energy and transport professionals go for free on the first day.
So, Chau, thank you very much for joining us today. This is, I think, one of the critical aspects of the transition to electric vehicles. My arguments are now that the cars themselves, the problems people might have with them are psychological, not technological. The technology works. I just, when people go, I'm worried about the batteries, I just go, yeah, I can't be bothered to even talk about it. But when they say, I don't know where I'll charge my car, I think they've got a point. Yeah. And that seems to be what you're dealing with. So would you mind going back a bit and explain? Because I think your journey to where you've got to is really interesting. You were operating you explained, but it was about a fleet of vehicles that were running on LPG. Is that correct? Back in the day.
No. So let me take you back to all the way to 2008.
Thank you.
That's how long Origin has been in the EV space in Australia, since 2008.
Wow.
So back then we were the leading charging provider for EV drivers, and there weren't that many EVs on the road.
There's probably only about 10. Yes.
We went into the market very early. And then in 2012, we started to trial a whole range of EVs in our fleet. So back then, the only choices were the Nissan Leaf, the first generation Nissan Leaf, and the Mitsubishi Outlander as the plug-in hybrid.
Right.
So we've been trialing and operating EVs in our fleet for over a decade. And, back in 2012, we started with pool vehicles. So they were the lowest hanging fruit. We converted our pool vehicles into EVs. And the feedback that we got from our employees on, the very, very early EVs weren't, great. We had to tow the EVs back a few times. Being people, people took them out in the morning, took them back, and then the people who took them out in the afternoon just ran out of charge. So
right.
Yeah. So that was kind of our first foray into the EV market. And then, we kept that business going for quite a number of years, actually, until like 2015, 2016. So, like kind of trudging along, not really, meeting all of the forecasts that we had.
Yeah.
In 2018, I was leading corporate strategy at the time for Origin. And as part of my work in corporate strategy, I pitched to the management team and the board a refreshed EV strategy, starting with really, transitioning the Origin fleet over to electric in earnest. So, we've done the trials, we've done the pilot, we've seen the momentum offshore, and we expect that it's going to hit Australia. So I put a business case together to convert 100% of Origin's passenger and light commercial vehicles over to electric by 2030. And I think the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. So there was a bit of resistance internally about EVs. Like, we've done that. That didn't really take off. Why is now the right time? But I was quite persistent in trying to get it across the line. So we got the management and the board approval to do the electrification of the Origin fleet. So we thought that was the hard part done, right? Like, we got management approval, let's go and do it. We found that the whole change management process following that, management approval was much more challenging than getting the approval. So you think that as employees of an energy retailer, all of our employees would be on board with EVs. But we actually started the transition with the LPG sales team. So they're a team that went out to see customers to sell LPG to. So we have a range of Toyota hybrids that were coming off lease. So we thought,
Right.
let's try the transition with our team. And I didn't realize it back then, but the LPG sales team were a bunch of petrol heads. So
Yes.
they were very concerned about, having to take an EV as their work car. So we had
Yeah.
to quickly learn to, do that whole change management process. Send out the surveys to our employees, really understand how they would use the fleet, whether they have charging available for them at home or whether they lived near public charging network. And then actually we had to run test drives and drive days for our own
Right.
employees to really get them, engaging with EVs. And we found that as soon as we, got them into an EV, they were sold.
Right.
So now, we've converted, probably we're on our way to 50% of the passenger fleet over
Right.
to electric.
Wow.
And our employees love the
Right.
vehicles. So there's a bit of FOMO going on now.
Yes.
That's kind of the Origin fleet experience. But based on that experience, we realized, back in 2019, that there was a gap in the market. Our customers were interested, were curious about EVs, but really didn't know how to start that transition. So we
And can I just ask, when you say your customers, are you talking about other like companies with fleets of cars? You're not talking about individual people in their homes. This is
right.
different.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
So the first product that we launched was focused on organizations looking to transition their fleet to EVs. They had cars from OEMs. They had their traditional fleet management operators, who help them out with their traditional ICE vehicle fleet.
Yeah.
But there was really no one to provide them advice on how to put that whole EV transition strategy together and wrap the car, the fit for purpose vehicle selection, the TCO analysis with the charging, with the energy. So we brought all of that together for the car.
Right. I need to know what TCO analysis is. That's a new one on me.
Total cost of ownership.
So thank you. I have heard that before. It was coming through.
Yeah.
Very critical. But I mean, also a fascinating. I found that has been very illuminating for individuals. When I say, in the UK, there are fleet managers who manage hundreds of electric vehicles. And I always say to them, why do you think they do that? Are they green? No, they do it because they've got spreadsheets and they work out how much it costs.
That's right.
And they know how much it costs. We guess, the general public, we guess, oh, well, I put some petrol in and I pay, I don't know. Nobody keeps that rigid sort of track. So you would know that stuff as how much these fleets cost to run.
Yeah, so we work with the fleet managers, understand how many kilometers their vehicles do, compared that to the cost of transitioning to EVs, because the upfront purchase price or the lease cost is still a bit higher than that than a petrol car, but the savings on the maintenance, the saving on the fuel, as well as the saving on the FBT now that the federal government has passed the FBT exemption.
So you have to can you quickly explain what that one is?
Fringe benefit tax.
Fringe benefit tax.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is we have.
So I think we have your benefit in kind.
Benefit in kind, which is
in the UK.
I've had that explained to me 10 times, and it's gone in and then it's gone out.
Yeah.
But I do get it. Yes.
Yeah. So with that fringe benefit tax exemption that got passed in December, it's made the economics and the TCO comparison for fleet vehicles as well as salary packaging an EV complete sense for employees and for organizations. So that's what, really underpinned the growth in the EV uptake over the last 12 months.
But I mean, that's the other thing that, that we have both experienced, because I still own a 2011 Nissan Leaf, and it's fine. But right from the start, I think you could classify the range as compromised, and it's not got much better. It's got worse. I have actually replaced the battery, and it's a whole other story. But it's an amazing car, and it's done, I don't know what, it's coming out to 100,000 miles.
Wow,
so
that's pretty good.
It's amazing. It's got lots of dents and scratches. It's just been well used. Yeah. But the difference between a car like the Nissan Leaf in 2011 and any number of electric cars that are available now is really huge.
That's
I mean,
right,
it's a
yeah.
they're very different beasts. So you can imagine someone who drove a Nissan Leaf, who's used to a petrol car in 2011, going, this thing will barely get around the corner, whereas now you don't think about it. I mean, they just go, don't they?
Yeah. So like the conversation with our employees have now flipped from us trying to convince them to take an EV to like the employees actively coming to us and going, hey,
Right.
my lease is coming up for expiry. Can I please get an EV? Because, you know, they're swapping out of quite, you know, old and not great car
Yeah.
into a very nice EV.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other side that, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you give a lot of advice on how those cars are charged. And are you actually, like, as an energy company, are you installing chargers or running or operate? Okay.
Yes.
So can you explain? Because I mean, I think that's the critical bit that, you know, we have to be honest, that Tesla got right. That, you know, they sold you an electric car, but they also sold you this phenomenal charging network. And I've used it in this country, all over Europe, in the United States. It is, you know, it just puts their cars in another, even if you don't like the cars or whatever, you can go anywhere. Yeah. The least of your problems is charging the car when you drive on a long way in a Tesla. Exactly. And at the moment, that needs to be spread to all cars, doesn't it? All electric cars.
Yeah. So we tell the organizations that we talk to, the EV fleet transition is so much more than just a car, because it's everything else surrounding the car that is new for these organizations. Yes. And charging is always the first question that pops up.
Yeah.
And you know, like, charging is our bread and butter. We've been doing it since 2008. We've been charging as very easy, right? Because you have so many options with EVs to charge. With a petrol car, you
go to a gas station. That's
you go to the petrol station. With EVs, you can charge it at work. You can charge it at home. You can access the public charging network. You can trickle charge. You can do, you know,
rapid charge,
three-phase DC charging. So there are so many options. So it's working with these organizations to understand what is the right charging strategy that works for their business news. And, you know, and a lot of the time it is a combination of at work depot charging, if it's a take-home vehicle, charge at home, and then supplementing that with the public charging network. And, you know, one of the key questions that we get from employees who are taking the vehicle home is, how are they going to get reimbursed for the energy that is used in their home to power the work car? Because, you know, with petrol cars, they've got a fuel card and they're never out of pocket. Here, if they don't get reimbursed, they will be out of pocket, even though, like, the amount is small compared to what you know they would pay on petrol. So because we've had to solve that problem for our own fleet, we've developed quite a seamless solutions for customers. So we install a smart charger at the employee's home. It tracks how much energy is used to power the work car. If they're an Origin electricity customer, we directly reduce their electricity bill, their quarterly electricity bill, by that amount. So they never even have to claim reimbursement. They don't have to fill in the
It's
form.
Just automatic. Wow.
It's all automatic. If they're not an Origin electricity customer, that's absolutely fine. We provide them with the information to claim the reimbursement. So that whole, you know, how am I going to get reimbursed is now pretty easy for us.
Right. And I mean, one of the other ones that depot, now I've seen an example here now, and this is my old memory is failing me, but I've seen an example here of a fairly large depot with a lot of fleet vehicles, electric vehicles, but also an enormous solar canopy. And it was that step where the company had gone, hang on a minute, we can make our own petrol.
Yes.
It was the one of the lines. The guy said, this would have been in about when I visited in 2019, and I can't remember where that is. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but is that something you've seen? Is that something you can help create? Maybe it was something you did. I don't even know.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to where you saw this solar canopy.
It was either in Brisbane, Sydney, or Melbourne, or Adelaide. It could have been in Adelaide. Anyway, doesn't matter.
We definitely, that was one of the earliest charging project that we did, was combine a solar canopy with like a whole range of EV charging stations. Because like you said, if you power these vehicles with like the sun, then it's
Yeah.
basically free.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and you're using renewable energy, so it makes complete sense. We did a smart charging trial 4 years ago with the federal government agency called Arena, and we found that a third of the charging was done during the middle of the day by
Right.
both kind of residential customers as well as fleet customers. And that's where, we get very excited about the potential for EVs to absorb
Yeah.
the excess renewable energy during the middle of
Yeah.
the day, and add value back to the energy system. So yeah, that's we get very excited about all of these batteries on wheels being able to connect back
Yes.
into the energy system.
But then that's also the advantage you have in the fact that you're also an energy company. And so you can presumably, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about your connection with Octopus Energy in the UK, but we don't have to talk about that now. But that the variable tariffs, the way that you're encouraging, there's a thing I did from here
Yeah.
last night in the UK. They asked for people to reduce their demand between 4 and 7 in the evening.
Yeah.
And which I could do from here because which was amazing thing to be able to do. And it's a very small amount of money off my electricity bill, but it is some.
Yes.
Because because I have batteries at home, I can use nothing in that period, so I get quite good points.
Yes. Yeah.
But is that something because I don't know as well how the Australian energy grid works,
Yeah.
and presumably you do have variable tariffs here, don't you?
So the standard tariff in Australia is either just a flat rate, 24-hour
Right.
flat rate, or you've got time of use tariff where you've got kind of peak, shoulder, and off peak. What we did with the smart charging trial that we did, and we enrolled all of the smart chargers onto our virtual power plant loop, and then we would then kind of be able to control all of these charges remotely via our
Right.
virtual power plant. So at first, we were sending price signals to the EV drivers. So, between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m., that's when the evening peak is in Australia.
Yeah.
If you turn down your charging, then we will reward you with,
Right.
a small kind of incentive. So we did that first. We found that a lot of EV drivers responded to those price
Right.
signals. And then the next step is, thank you for participating. Now, to make it super easy for you, you don't even need to actively, go and unplug and plug.
Right.
You can remotely dial into your smart charger and do that for you.
Right.
Of course, you have the ability to opt out of that smart charging event if
Yeah.
you really need a charge. But we found that not a lot of people opted out. So
Yeah.
they allowed us control of those charges, and they got paid incentives for doing so.
Right. And I mean, that must make, it makes a difference. It feels right when you're, as an individual, that you're not adding to that, the burden on the grid. But I mean, as a business, presumably, if a business can do that on a bigger scale, if they've got 50 or 100 vehicles, that starts to have a real impact.
That's right, yeah, and they can save a lot of money. So what we do with our fleet customers is, after 6 months of the customers operating the EV in their fleet, we sit down with them and we go, well, this is how you're charging your vehicles at the moment. This is how much it's costing you. If you adopt a smarter charging profile, this is how much money you'll save. So that conversation really resonates with these organizations.
Yeah. But what's fascinating is because it's such an education process, isn't it? That in a way that the kind of discussions I've been having is people will see now like a rapid charging hub on a motorway or on a at a location, and they'll go, oh, I get it. That's how you charge an electric car. Mm-hmm. And while those hubs are critically important, I always want to say to them, well, you can do that. And from experience, I do use rapid chargers, but not anything like as much as I use petrol pumps. And so that presumably those discussions you're having with your customers is that education piece that it's not a petrol car.
That's right.
It doesn't behave in the same way.
Yeah, and that's one of the really great thing about EVs is you don't need to go somewhere to charge anymore, right? What we found is that 80% of the charging in Australia is at home or at work, right? So you don't
Right.
even need to think about like standing there waiting for your car to
Yeah.
get charged. You literally plug it in if you're at home, soak up the sun, plug it in at night while you sleep. It's like charging your phone, right? It's so
Yeah.
convenient. So that's the best thing that I like about EVs is the convenience of charging. If you can charge at home or at work, why would you go somewhere else to charge?
Yes. And then, so are you involved in like what I see is quite a rapidly growing segment in the UK, which is mainly delivery vans, is distribution companies adopting electric vehicles. So then they have maybe 200 or 300 vehicles. I mean, is there examples of that in Australia where there's really quite a big chunk of vehicles at a depot that need charging at certain times? And the strain that the kind of headline story in the newspapers, the strain that puts on the local grid. But I mean, is that something you've been dealing with?
So we've been talking to a lot of our customers who have that last mile delivery fleet or middle mile. The range of commercial electric vehicles in Australia even now is still quite limited. And the ones that we do have, like the range is still a little bit lower than what is required for these quite heavy delivery runs. So there are small pilots and trials of commercial electric vans, but we're not seeing the fleets transitioning like 200 vehicles at a time that will require upgrades to electrical infrastructure to enable that charging. That will come, but what we say to our customers is with the right charging strategy and with the right infrastructure, it's not going to blow up the grid.
No.
Like it's going to be completely manageable. You just need to plan the charging and the delivery routes to match the profile of the EV.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing that I have really witnessed being an occasional visitor to Australia is the sort of the ramp up of adoption. So I think when I came in 2019, there was a lot of Teslas and not a lot else. And, you would see Nissan Leafs and you'd see iMeves and, they're white because I spot them at 500 meters. I can see an electric car. But now, when I come now, and my sister-in-law who lives just up the road from where we are now has a BYD, and it's not uncommon. There's so many electric cars and I always think of like Sydney, I wouldn't be surprised. Melbourne, I wouldn't be surprised. Brisbane, I sort of think is a bit of a,
it's a sunshine state, so
it's a beautiful sunshine state. But they have gone hell for leather for there's so many here. It's really, really common.
So like the growth over the last 12 months of EV sales has been phenomenal. Like we went from 3.1% last year to 7.2% this year. And like if we had more EVs, more availability of models, I reckon that number would be higher. I think it's supply that is capping the demand. And like the thing that has really driven that take up of EV sales is like that fringe benefit tax exemption that I mentioned, because we looked at what happened to the EV sales in the UK when your benefits in kind tax was taken away for EVs. Like you saw that massive step up in EV sales, and we're seeing that in Australia as well. So it makes complete sense for employees to salary package an EV because they're saving up to like 45% off the cost of their EV. Like it's a no-brainer.
While we're on the topic of there is the demand and there's a shortage, there's a story I saw which I've reported on just because it was so uniquely Australian. But there was a shipload of cars arriving in Brisbane, all electric cars, a whole ship full, and they found lesser spotted stink bugs. Did you see that story? I'm like, but I absolutely understand and support Australia's strict, biointegrity. You don't want suddenly lesser spotted stink bugs, but it was just such a classic story, that it was high-tech electric cars on board a ship.
Yeah.
Oh, we found these little bugs.
Yes,
Can you
and they
go
had to turn the
to
ship
turn it
around
round?
to quarantine.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of EVs sitting on that ship that we are now
Wow.
tracking because our customers are waiting for delivery,
That
and
is,
now we have to inform them that they're not getting their EVs for a
it's,
few more months because of some stink bug.
but you can guarantee that when they finally do get them, there'll be no stink bugs on board.
They'll be very happy.
Yeah, but so this problem actually directly affects Origin. Then that was there. Some of those cars there are.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So we not a lot of people know this because we're an energy company. You think that we just play in the energy and the charging space, but we provide the vehicles directly to our customers via
Right.
leasing arrangement, subscription arrangement, and car sharing. So we have quite a big and growing fleet of EVs that we deploy to help our customers make that switch to EVs in the fastest and seamless way possible. So we pride ourselves on having vehicles available so that our customers can quickly get into an EV. So when things like this happen and delivery is delayed because of stink bugs or because of some compliance issues, it really impacts our customers.
Yeah. But I suppose this is nothing that you can have control over, but it does seem, and I've heard people express their frustration about it, that, Australia is this enormous country with enormous natural resources, which are dug up and put on a ship and sent, generally to China, where they're made into something that then comes back. Why isn't Australia making cars here is the sort of, and batteries, you've got all this. It's, I think, 45% of global lithium is in Australia, which is quite a lot.
Yeah, so I sit on the board of the Electric Vehicle Council with AHAD, and I saw your podcast with him last night. It is one of our aim is to really go deeper into that battery value chain in Australia, so that we can capture more of the value from our natural resources rather than just ship them overseas and then import them back.
But I mean it makes so much sense here to, it's taken me a few years to truly understand the benefits of having, because I've got batteries in my house, but and I've got solar in the UK. I mean, at the moment, yesterday I got 8.2 kilowatt hours.
Wow.
In the middle of winter, which is not, it's not nothing, but it's pretty low. I mean, in the summer, I'll get 65, in a day. So 8.2 is so that's the difference. Whereas here, it's just, I'm so frustrated. I want to live in Australia just so I can have some solar panels.
Yes, we are very lucky over here. And, and EVs and solar is just a match made in heaven, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, is that something Origin, I don't know whether Origin, I don't know much about the business, didn't have time to find it all out, but do you install solar domestically, or is that not a business? Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, yeah. So we've been one of the leading solar installers in Australia for 2 decades. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So
I should know that. I feel bad.
We have a large network of electricians and subcontractors that install solar for residential as well as for commercial premises. And then we then leverage that to do our battery installation, our EV charging installation. So it is pretty much a one-stop shop at Origin.
Yeah. I mean, that is such a fascinating change for an energy company, because traditionally you would have, well, I know you still do run large power plants, but that would normally be you run the power, you generate the power there, it goes down the wire to a substation, then out to people's homes or offices or factories or whatever.
Yeah.
And now that is, dealing with that complexity of, well, the power, there's thousands of power, there's hundreds of thousands of power stations.
Yeah.
How do you, managing that is fascinating.
We believe that, the future electrical infrastructure and grid is going to have a large proportion that comes from distributed energy assets.
Yeah.
So behind the meter solar, behind the meter batteries, all of the appliances at your house, could be an energy asset. that
Yeah.
can be controlled to respond to signals from the energy markets. So
Right.
we, over the last 4 years, we have built our virtual power plant to be able to control all of these distributed energy assets so that they can feed into the grid. So that we don't need to overbuild on renewables and batteries at scale if we can tap
Right.
in all of these individual solar battery systems.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think that it feels like that is the next step. So I don't know when it was, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I had a vehicle to grid unit put into or vehicle to home,
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
fair, a unit put into my house, and it only worked with Nissan Leafs, and it was CHAdeMO, and I had a Nissan Leaf, but mine was a year too old.
all
So
right.
it doesn't have it. It was the very, very first generation. So it
Yes,
was
yeah,
so
yeah,
frustrating.
yeah,
And we've used it and we filmed it. So someone else with a new Nissan Leaf came in
yeah,
and we boiled the kettle and switched lights on with power from the car.
yeah.
But that was it, kind of quite early stages and a very expensive system and
Yes,
quite complex.
yeah,
That
yeah.
has got simpler and cheaper, hasn't it? I mean, is that something you're looking at this year? Because I've just been reading all this stuff. 2024 is the year of vehicle to
Vehicle to
X or
grid, yeah,
V2X,
vehicle to X,
vehicle to
yeah,
grid or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That is the ultimate holy grail for
Yeah.
us as an energy company, is to be able to tap in all of these millions of batteries on wheels, because then we won't have
Yeah.
to build so many utility scale batteries. We can just
Yeah.
tap into all of these assets that are operating as both a mobility asset as well as an energy asset now. So good
Yeah.
for the EV drivers, good for kind of the energy system. So yeah, we're definitely very keen. In Australia, I think the regulatory landscape needs to be developed to
Right.
really enable vehicle to grid in particular. And then, yeah, we're looking forward to, having the bi-directional chargers come in, be certified so that, yeah, we can start doing a few interesting pilots and trials.
Yeah. Because I mean, again, that would be something like 20 years ago would be impossible to even imagine that you could have 1 million cars that you can extract power
Right.
from to
Yeah.
run a city.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking at that scale. Once you get up to, if we replace our fleet, our entire
Yeah.
transport fleet with electric vehicles, it's mind-boggling
Yeah. That would be
that they're
amazing.
actually useful when we're not driving them, which makes a lot of sense.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I keep saying to everyone, the car is the most inefficient use of
It's
capital
crazy.
that we
Yeah.
have in our personal lives. We spend so much money on the vehicle and we use it
Yeah.
5% of the time. 95% of
It's
the time, it's
horrifying.
just sitting there doing
Doing nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Like it could act as a battery
Yeah.
when we're not
Yeah.
using it. It's just a really valuable, untapped opportunity.
Yeah. But presumably company cars have a higher use. I'm guessing, but they must have a higher use rate, I would imagine.
And that's why we started with looking at helping fleets transition over to EVs. Because
Right.
of that higher utilization, it makes the saving on maintenance and the fuel
Right.
a lot more attractive for fleet. And, once these vehicles turn over after 3 or 4 or 5 years in the fleet, it can then go into the second-hand market and
Yeah.
provide, more affordable EV options for the wider market. So we were very
Yeah.
interested in looking at that for the fleet.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's one of the things that's taken me a while to realize, because I've got used to experiencing new cars since I've been making this show. And then I had to really kind of think back, oh, hang on. I never went in a new car when I was a young man, when I was, even when I wasn't that a younger man. I didn't even know people.
Yeah.
I did not know people who had new cars. Everyone I knew had a second or third or fourth hand car.
Yeah.
I sometimes had 10th hand cars, they were falling to bits. And because when people say, oh, electric cars are really expensive to buy, well, yeah, cars are expensive to buy new.
That's right.
And the only thing we can say at the moment is electric cars are getting cheaper to buy new, and that's
Yeah. What we launched last year at Fully Charged
Right.
was a salary packaging EV subscription offer. So this is for employees to
Right.
subscribe for an EV and pay for it with their pre-tax salary. And because of the fringe
Right.
benefit tax exemption, they are saving quite a lot of money from getting into an EV that way. It's like up
Right.
to 45% off, the
That's a
cost of the
yeah.
subscription. And one of the things that we're finding, having operated this EV subscription offer for, over 12 months now, is there are some people who, use the subscription as a way to try an EV.
Right.
Like they don't know if it's going to work for their lifestyle, how they're going to charge it. They don't know whether they're going to like the Model Y or whether they like the Volvo better. So subscription provides a really flexible way
Yeah.
for them to get into an EV. So we have, quite a good cohort of customers who get into their first EV and absolutely fall in love with it, and they just keep it. And then we have
Right.
a cohort who are really into the whole flexibility and subscription concept. So they're
Right.
onto their fourth EV over the
Wow.
last 12 months. And when they hand these vehicles back, we can then subscribe these vehicles back out to other customers at a lower
Right.
price because they are now used and they've got
Yeah.
kilometers on them. So we're finding that subscription is enabling that faster kind of turnaround off the vehicle and really opening up that secondhand subscription
Right.
offer for people who don't necessarily want to pay for a new car.
Yes. And I mean, also that whole thing. It's also that avoids having to pay for a second or third hand car. The subscription, I think, makes so much sense because I think our relationship with cars. I'm sure you've discussed this, but in a sense, our relationship with cars could do with changing. The fact that I own this car and it says something about me.
Yeah.
I've always found slightly disturbing because what it says about when a man like me at my age gets out of, say, a two-seater sports car,
Yeah.
what it says about you is you're really tragic. It doesn't say you're cool, or it says exactly the opposite, which is breaks the fantasy of it. But it is that that subscription model really. Whenever I've come across that, and we have similar things in the UK, I just think that is, if I was a young person now outside of what I do, that would be the choice I'd have because I don't want to own a car. I want to have one that I can use when I need it.
And then have that complete flexibility to change vehicles when your circumstances change, or to hand the vehicles back. Like if you're going to go overseas for 6 months, you don't want a vehicle just sitting there or have the hassle of buying and selling cars. So our subscription offer is completely flexible. Like it's a minimum term of 30 days. So we have people who have been in accidents with their petrol car. We've managed to get them into like an EV within 24 hours because otherwise they'd be catching Ubers at very expensive rates. So that's like another cohort of customers who just need a vehicle urgently. We also find that the subscription offer has accelerated people's consideration of EVs because the price, the cost of the subscription is salary packaged, and they are saving so much on that subscription fee. They are actively selling their petrol car to get into an EV via subscription.
Wow.
Otherwise, they would have been, waiting another 2 to 3 years to get the maximum use out of their existing petrol car before they make the switch. But because we offer this really flexible product at very affordable, commercial terms, they are accelerating that switch to EVs.
Right. And I mean, the thing that I think it would be good to ask you, but from the point of view of people who've heard scare stories about electric cars and worried about how long they last, you've presumably now got experience of you could track an individual car that's been used in a fleet, then been used as in all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do the batteries wear out after 2 years?
Oh no, not.
Sorry, stupid question.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No. We've had these vehicles in the Origin fleet for 4 years now, and they're still pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have any complaints against them.
And then the other thing I'd love to know, from that point of view, is maintenance costs. Because I feel really bad about the way I haven't looked after my Nissan Leaf. So it's basically the only car I own is that old Nissan Leaf.
Yeah.
All the others I've got different leases and things going on, but I haven't looked after it in terms of having it serviced.
Yeah.
But it's never gone wrong.
That's right.
So I feel guilty.
Yeah.
When I take it into service now, I go, I'm really sorry. I feel guilty. But there's nothing wrong with it. I've had the rear wiper blade replaced.
Yeah.
I was annoyed about that. And tires.
Yeah.
Tires and front brake pads. I think that's about it.
Yes. Yeah.
There's nothing. So the maintenance cost of running a similar sized petrol car over a similar time and distance would be very substantial. I know that from long and bitter experience.
Yes.
So is that something you can see reflected when you have a large number of vehicles?
Yes, yeah. And from my personal experience as well, right? So we're still a 2-car family just because we've got, the existing petrol car that we take to the beach, and we put paddle boards and our boogie boards.
You're Australian. You have a lifestyle. I know what it's like.
It's not because the electric car can't take these boards. It's just because I don't want the kids to trash the nice electric car. So every year, when we put these 2 cars into service, the petrol car and the electric car, I pay over $1,000 for the petrol car and $200 for the electric car.
Wow,
so
there you go.
That's the difference, like in my personal car.
Yeah. And I can remember having, taking old petrol cars, when I bought a cheap second-hand car, and the man says, you've got to have a new clutch. And I just remember, the bottom falling out of my world. That's going to cost all the money I've ever earned to have a new clutch.
Yeah.
And it just, those from that experience, that car just hasn't gone wrong. There's nothing has broken in it. It's been a pain. The pain is that it didn't go very far. When it was
First generation
new.
Nissan Leaf. I hear
First
your
generation
pain because
Nissan
we had to
Leaf,
tow a few of those back. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I made mine run out on purpose to see what happened because I'd never done it.
Yeah.
And I had cameras on and I drove it round. It took forever to actually run out.
Yeah.
It's the only time. When you want it to run out, it took forever. But
we have a competition in the EV team at Origin is like who can go the lowest in terms
the lowest.
of how much charge you have left. It's a sport that we have in the team every weekend.
Yeah.
We just post like who can go the lowest.
Who can get that? But then tell me, just to sort of wrap it up, tell me what you're most sort of looking forward to and excited about in the future. I mean, what areas are you exploring?
Yeah, so the first one is really keen to see more EVs come into Australia in the next 12 months. So, we're working very hard to get the fuel efficiency standards to be passed in Australia. That will hopefully mean that we get more vehicles coming into Australia, more commercial electric vehicles as well for the fleet, and then just see that EV sales take off over the next 12 months. That would be really exciting. The next thing that we're excited about is really solving the charging challenge for people in apartment buildings, in existing apartment buildings. So we work with property developers quite regularly to future-proof future apartment buildings, future-proof them. But in existing apartment buildings, there's a whole consideration as to whether there's enough power capacity, what is the infrastructure that is required to install all of these EV charging in these buildings. So we're working quite closely with body corporates and strata managers to really address that barrier to EV adoption in that segment.
But then presumably with smart charging technology, if there were, say, 10 in the building I'm in, big apartment block, 10 charging points and everyone plugged in, that could be managed so that you did charge all those cars, but you're not trying to charge them all at once at full power. You
Absolutely.
can vary that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we utilize a combination of local load management system to make sure that there's sufficient energy in the building to do everything that the building requires, and as well as then connecting that to our virtual power plant so that the building can be, responding to signals from the distribution network, from the wholesale electricity market.
But then, am I right I think it's in Queensland, there is now legislation which states that if you're building a new apartment block, you have to put the infrastructure. You don't have to put the chargers in.
Yeah.
But do you not have to put you have to put the wires in?
It's
nationwide. So that they can be. That's nationwide.
Yes,
okay, that's great.
Yeah, it was the change to the National Construction Code last year that requires, all new buildings to be 100% EV ready. So like you said, it doesn't have to have a charger in every single car spot, but it needs to have the infrastructure.
Right. Because, what I'm seeing when I look out of the window here is a lot of cranes. There's a lot of new apartment buildings being built in Brisbane. Yeah. So now they've all got to have that, which is fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, the two, I've stayed in 2 apartments in my life, one in Oslo, which unsurprisingly had chargers, and one in Germany. And to drive in, they said, you can park in the thing, come down there, and you park, and there's a charger. It makes such a huge difference. Yeah. You've driven a long way, and you park in the car park, and there's a charger on the wall, and you plug in, it goes bing, and it's on. You just go, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that is clearly a thing you're doing, but that, for me, is the thing that I always want to encourage is on the few places I've seen it. So there's a shopping mall in Oxford in England, which has, I don't know how many it is. It's like a great many. So let's say 60 or 70 sockets on the wall. You drive in, they're not painted green. There's no signage or anything.
Yeah.
You park in that thing, you plug in. Now you pay for the parking, and it's not that cheap, the parking.
Yeah.
But it charges the car. Well, I've spent a day at a conference in Oxford. I parked the car there. I paid £14, I think, for the parking. And when I got back, my car was 100%.
It's so
it had filled it. And that is, you just need that everywhere. So you're not waiting to charge it. You're doing something else. And then you get back.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I really like about driving an EV is, at the moment, at the shopping centres, the EV charging parking spots are always right in front of the entrance or the lift. So, you get a good charge as well as a great parking spot.
That's the opposite in the UK. They're always at the far end where there's a big puddle and all the rubbish is still... Yeah, no, not quite, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
But that's been so good to talk to you. And I've got so many other questions that I'm now going to remember once we finish. But I don't want to... you've been very generous with your time, and it's been really good to talk to you. And I wish you all the very best with it. And I'm very impressed that Origin and Octopus, because I have to say I'm a bit of an Octopus fan. They're my energy supply.
I'm so glad you are, because we are a big Octopus fan as well.
Yeah.
I'm very close to Fiona, who's the CEO of Octopus EV.
Great.
We view them as like our sister company, so we look at what they're doing in the UK, and it's amazing what they're doing in the UK.
Yes, no, it's great. I had an email from Fiona this morning, so it's a small world we inhabit.
Yes, yeah.
But it's been great talking to you, and good luck with everything you're doing. And also, I have to apologise because you launched this amazing product at Fully Charged Show last year, and I was there.
Yes, you were there. Yes,
I've got no excuse, but there was quite a lot of other things going on. That's my only excuse. And I'm quite old.
Yeah, no, you're not.
But it was.
We've got a very big presence. Again, bigger.
At the next one, I'm so thrilled.
At the one in Feb. So we've brought the whole Origin family along with us. But it's not just about EVs. It's about everything electric. Just the name of the
name of the show. Well, I am definitely going to make a supreme effort to battle my way through the crowds and come and find you.
Yes, last year we had the racing car. We had you there. Do you remember?
That's right. Yes, I do. Yes.
yes. So this year I'll be on another panel session with you on the Sunday.
Great.
So I'm looking.
Good. Oh, that's really good. Great stuff. you've been a joy. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Sarah.
for your
It's
time,
really good.
Robert.
Really hope you enjoyed that. I really want to just turn the air conditioning back on. There's a lot of solar on the roof of this building, so it's very, very low impact from a carbon standpoint. But I am desperate to cool down a bit. It is nice and sticky and warm here. Please do subscribe to the Fully Charged Show podcast and the Fully Charged Show and the Everything Electric channel. Do check all those out. We'll put some links to the Origin EV's work in the show notes for this episode, and do please tell your friends and family about what we do, because I think it's of growing importance on a global level. But I don't want to make what we do too grandiose. But there we go. It's one of the most critically important things that the human race can ever achieve. But that's it. That's it. That's all. Hope to see you in Sydney, if not in London after that, if not in Harrogate after that. And as always, if you have been, thank you for listening.